right, welcome young adults. I'm excited to be able to teach you about Myers-Briggs. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but at least I get to be with you this way. So before I talk about Myers-Briggs, I want to just kind of give a little context to some of these different personality tests and tools, different things. You've probably heard of several of them. So some of them that I've heard of, I think Allie's going to teach you on the Enneagram. Then I'm going to cover Myers-Briggs. Another one out there is DISC. Another one, Working Genius, Strength Finder, some of these different things. So in my fun time, I call it a jobby. It's not quite a total hobby, because hobby, you can not have deadlines and all this kind of stuff. The job, you got to do it right. But in kind of my jobby world, I get to do leadership coaching, consulting. So when I think about the Enneagram, I utilize the Enneagram for counseling, because there's a spiritual component to it. It can be very individualized. It takes a look at your past, your childhood, a bunch of different things like that. When I think about Myers-Briggs, Myers-Briggs is great for one-on-one coaching because it is very individualized and there's a lot to it. So today I'm going to give you a primer that's going to give you kind of a broad view of Myers-Briggs, but if you want more in depth on it, there's this group right here. They're called Personality Hacker. So I've got a book that you can use from. They also have a podcast. Their podcast is really, really good, and it'll give you more insights even on your own personal personality type. But then they also have a certification program. So if you'd like to go through that, that's great. DISC, I like to do this with a team. It's simple. You're one of 4 letters, whereas Myers-Briggs, you got 16. Enneagram, you got 9. And then Working Genius, something new that's out there. And I like to do that with leadership teams. So what you're getting is going to be really good for you as an individual. And there's, like I said, other resources to help you go even deeper into it. So today, as we look at Myers-Briggs, what Myers-Briggs is going to ultimately give you is 4 letters. It's going to give you 4 letters. You're either going to be extroverted, which is the E, or you're going to be introverted, which is the I. And then the second category, that second dichotomy, you're going to be intuitive or sensing. You're either going to be thinking or feeling, and you're either going to be judging or perceiving. So within this, you're going to, as you either take a personality test or however you want to do it, you're going to be in one of these 2 dichotomies, which each of these 4 categories. And my favorite quiz or personality assessment I have people do is if you go to 16personalities.com, they got a free assessment that you can take there, and it's really intuitive. They do a good job with it. Okay, so when you think about extroverted versus introverted, typically what I hear from people is it's about energy management, where extroverted people, they get energy from being around people. Introverted get energy from being by themselves. That is true, but it's only a part of it. The other big part is, what is the real world? What is the real world? So for an introvert, they're going to say the real world is what is inside of them. So what they can know internally, what they've processed through, they've worked through, like the inside their brain, that is the real world for them. And then they're going to figure out how to take their real world and translate it into the external that we all are a part of. For extroverts, the real world is the external world and what they get to experience and be a part of and interact with. So there's kind of just 2 things at play. One, what is the real world? Is it out here for extroverts, or is it internal for introverts? But then also the energy management of introverts are going to get energy when they're by themselves, and extroverts are going to get energy when they're out with other people. But within Myers-Briggs, like if you go to 16personalities.com, you're not just going to get, oh, I'm an E or I'm an I. You're actually going to get a spectrum. So all of us are on a spectrum. And so you might find out that you are 60% E or 70% I or whatever. So for me, I am about 60% E. So I'm going to go right about here. And again, within Myers-Briggs, there's a difference between being a 60% E and a 90% E. And there's a difference between being right in the middle to 40%, to, I guess, if you're that way, 60% I to 80% I, that type of thing. It's going to manifest itself differently. The other thing that I'm not going to get into too much, but the way that this plays out with these other letters makes a difference as well. I'll give you one example, and then that'll kind of give you an illustration for other possibilities. So me being an extrovert, and someone else that you guys might know, I use this example when I taught this in our staff meeting, is Doug Congdon, okay? So he's probably a little more extrovert than he's probably 80% or so, I don't know, I'm guessing. He's probably right here, so that's a difference. But another difference is I'm an ET, whereas Doug's going to be an EF. And I'm going to get to that later, but basically I'm going to make decisions a little more on data and thinking. He's going to make a little more decisions on relationships. And so what's going to give us energy in being an E is I am not necessarily going to love going to a party and being around a bunch of people there and it's, fun and there's dancing and, all these different things. Like, I'm not necessarily going to get energy just straight up from being around people. I actually get energy more from, I love like strategy meetings. I love doing trainings like this. I love doing different things like within work, leading people, that type of thing. Doug's going to get energy from being around people and having fun and that type of thing. I got some feedback from people that was like, Jeremy, that was interesting training. You basically said you work hard and Doug plays hard. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is within this, there are certain things that give us energy, right? So two people can be an E, depending upon their spectrum, they're going to look differently. And depending upon how they go with other letters, it's going to interact differently as well. So that's EI. The next one is NS, and this one is honestly the most confusing one. So I'm going to do my best to try to explain it to you, and hopefully you'll understand it. The difference between intuitive, and they couldn't use an I because you had I for introverts, they used an N. Intuitive versus sensing, it's how we experience the world. So let me give you a couple examples. One would be if you are at a theater and you're watching a play go on, or even like a musical. Sensors are going to be very much about what they are seeing on the stage right there. They're thinking about the sounds, how the set design, how people are enunciating, the script, like they're very much what is right in front of them in the play. Whereas an intuitive is going to be thinking, I wonder how they figured out how to do the set transitions, or I wonder what's coming next in the plot, or I wonder, like they're thinking more behind the scenes what's going on. So S's are very much about what is quantifiable, what is right in front of them, what can they respond to, react to, what's dependable, what's reliable. N's are much more on what could be and what's not right in front of them. They're pattern recognition. So they can take different little snippets of data, and because their brain has done this over and over and over, they've learned how to extrapolate that into a pattern and say, based on their gut, this is what I think is going to happen down here. And so S's can do this too. They just don't trust it, and so they haven't developed it in their life. So an S will be talking to an N, and N's like either, based upon what I'm seeing here with this data, like I think this is what we should do down here. And the S is like, you have no idea. Like you haven't proven that, you haven't shown that. Like I need to have more things to like convince me of that. N's just kind of know that. How they learn can be different too. So N's can be much more about experiencing things, and S's can be more about like data, reading, some of those types of things. So that's some of the difference between N and S, and again, there's a spectrum. I'm gonna be more right here, more on the N side, and so I love thinking about like what could be, planning for the future, some of those things. Another thing about S's tend to be better athletes than N because they're more reactive. And so if you're very much about sensing, if you're playing a sport, someone's handing you a ball or you're passing or that type of thing, like you're able to respond to it in real time. I played point guard and quarterback, and so I was able to use this N part of me where as point guard, you're making sure everyone's right there and you're calling out a play. So I'm picturing, okay, here's the play I want to run to help, like based on what I've seen with the defense and stuff, get us the best option. As a quarterback, I'm standing back and I'm looking at the defense and I'm analyzing it. I'm like, I've seen this before in the film. This person's going to go here. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. And so I bet this is the right play I can do. Whereas a sensor, like in real time, they'll be dribbling, doing whatever. They can just respond to what's happening. They're not necessarily thinking as far ahead. So that's some differences between S and N. Now, the next dichotomy is T and F. So this is how we make decisions. So T are thinkers, F are feelers. So what I hear a lot is people say, well, as weird as it sounds, I hear some people say that they don't want to be a feeler, like they want to be a thinker. And I'm like, okay, it's odd, tell me more about that. And they say, well, people that are feelers, they just make decisions based upon their feelings. And it's not always a good decision and that type of thing. And it's not true. What happens is thinkers, when they look at a decision, they're looking at lots of different things. So they're going to look at the relationships, they're going to look at the data, they're going to look at the experiences, they're going to look at a bunch of different things to make a decision. Feelers are going to, give a lot more weight to relationships. So when a thinker gets a decision, so let's say it's budgeting time and they have to cut by 10%. So they're going to look at their budget area and they're going to say, okay, given the data and the return on investment and also how it's going to affect relationships, this is how I think we should allocate things. I'll make sure I have a conversation with that person because all thinkers feel, all feelers think. I'm not going to be a jerk and a bully, but like pragmatically, this is the best decision we should make. There's going to be some relational fallout, like this is what's best for our company. Feelers are going to think, man, if I move this money right here, I know that's going to really hurt that person, and I know that person got some of their budget cut last year, and I don't want to keep disappointing them because they might be disappointed, they might leave our company, whatever it might be. So maybe I'm going to leave them alone, and we'll see what I can do over here. And they're just making a lot of their decisions based upon relationships. It's not their feeling, it's about the relationships because they care about the people around them. Another thing that feelers are really good at is something called social contracts. And I'd never heard this term until I went through some of this training. I was like, what is that? So it's basically when someone walks into a room, they understand the feel of the room. They understand, okay, this person's in charge, but this person kind of is handling kind of the emotional energy in the room. And this person, you just don't ask this question, and this thing, like they just understand what you do and don't do in different situations. And so it's just really interesting how it plays out. So I'm gonna be more right here, like 65%, something like that on the thinking realm. And so again, as these start to pile up on each other, and you're either, ENT, or you might be INF or ISF or some of these things, what your real world is, and how that blends with your experience of the world, and you make decisions, it starts really playing into the full model of Myers-Briggs. Okay, last dichotomy, organization. So again, the thing I hear about this is that J's are organized and P's are disorganized, and that's not true. So the premise with this is that everyone has a desire to be organized and have control over their life. Just the way that a J gets there and a way that a P gets there is very different. So a J is going to say, I want my external world organized and situated in place so that then my mind can have the freedom to think and process and work through things. A P is going to say, I need my mind clear of what I think, have it very organized here, and then I'll figure out what to do externally. So how it manifests itself is that a J will often have a very organized car, have an organized office, have a clean house, some of these different things. And a P will know where everything is, but it won't necessarily appear organized. It might appear a little messy, papers everywhere, whatever it might be. And so within this, you just have to understand that our world values and appreciates J's a little bit more because of how it looks. And so if you are a P, you have a true gift of you are often able to be very flexible in your external world, and you understand what you believe and why you believe it, and you're able to communicate that. So if you're a P, your growth area is just to understand, I need to make sure my environment is cleaned up to a level that is acceptable to those I'm working with or those I'm living with or that type of thing. And from a work perspective, you want to make sure that what you know up here is reproducible in the real world. So whether that's having organized Google Drive folder, an organized calendar, or things like that, people can look at your calendar, know where you're at. They can look at your actual folders or your Google Drive, and they can know, oh, here's what he's thinking, here's what he's working on, that type of thing. And it's not just in your head and kind of a mystery out there. And then J's, because they're very organized, what it looks like, that's great, but often they can be compensating for not quite sure up here and they need more time to process. So we need to make sure we value P's and all the strengths they bring. P's work on developing that external organization. And J's, don't hyper organize your world to overcompensate for maybe things internally you need to organize. let your world be organized enough, and then focus on the other things you need to. So again, I'm going to be more on the J category. So for me, that equals ENTJ. One other thing I'll say about the J's and the P's, how you communicate will be different with a J versus a P. So a J, think about, there's no political like anything within this, just an example of people, Barack Obama he's gonna be actually an ENFJ, but the J-ness comes out in his talks. So his meter, very calm, very deliberate, and his hands, very much like this, okay? Look at him in a press conference, look at what he talks. He's passionate, but he's very deliberate with his hand movements. Now compare that to Donald Trump, he'll have a single like microphone thing here, and he'll be very animated with his motions and actions and that type of thing. J's are gonna be very conscious and calculated with how they move. P's are gonna be a little more like this, okay? Now, we got these 4 letters. So what that's gonna do now, I'm gonna give you an example for me of what this 4-letter code does. So I'm an ENTJ, and that's gonna give me a driver, the thing that gives me energy, it gives me life, and I practice it over and over in my life, which is why I get really good at it. And then our co-pilot, which is gonna be your balance to this, because it's gonna be, if I'm extroverted, it's gonna be introverted. If it's introverted as your driver, it's gonna be extroverted. And then your 10-year-old, this is gonna be something that's developed to the level of a 10-year-old. And so 10-year-olds have a lot of strengths. They've got a lot of energy and ideas and that type of thing, but it's not fully formed. And then you're gonna have a 3-year-old, the opposite of this, and then your 10-year-old's the opposite of this. This is your blind spot that you'll need to work on. So for me, driver, I'm not gonna explain how I got this, but it's gonna be the ET. And so the ET, it stands for effectiveness. So this is wanting to do the right things in the right time and helping get to the outcomes and things that you want to get to. It's always progress, moving forward, utilizing data, some of those types of things. Your co-pilot then, for me, opposite of E, so it's gonna be I. And then because I'm introverted, it's gonna be IN, and that stands for perspectives. So as I'm enjoying being effective, getting things done, moving the ball forward, that type of thing, what's gonna aid me in this is perspectives. 1, going introverted and understanding the perspectives of those around me, being a good listener, being a good collaborator, and allowing others to speak into this, and it's introverted, so doing a good job of listening. And then the other thing is, as I'm looking at data and experiences and these types of things, seeing the different patterns that are rising to help influence the decisions I'm gonna make. Then my 10-year-old, opposite of I is E, opposite of, I'll do it up here. Opposite of N is S, and this stands for sensation. So on a good day, this is where I can go to on vacation because it's developed to the level of a 10-year-old. So sensation is going out, interacting with your world, having fun. And so for me on vacation, like snorkeling, hiking, biking, kayaking, like all these different things, being out in the real world, it's a lot of fun. The problem can be if I skip when I'm in my family, when I'm at work, those types of things, if I skip perspectives, if I just go from effectiveness to sensation, I don't utilize that introverted part of me. So I'm not listening to other people, I'm not taking time to process, I'm just going straight from, I make a decision, put into action, okay? So you need your co-pilot to balance you out. And the final thing is your blind spot. Opposite of E is I, opposite of T is F, and so that stands for authenticity. So this is just that idea of vulnerability, of empathy, of willing to sit with people when you don't know what to do, when things are tough, when you're wrestling through stuff, that type of thing. So for each of you, depending upon your 4 letters, you're gonna have a same type of car model like this. And it'll give you opportunities of how to grow, how to stay balanced, identify your blind spots, some of those types of things. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And hopefully this gives you just some first steps to kind of think through, identify what your Myers-Briggs is and how it can help you as you move in the real world. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a great young adults. We'll talk to you later.